Hi friends, I'm Anne and I am Crafty Moose Quilts. I am so excited for you guys to make my Warm Woodlands block because it just encapsulates all of the things fall that my husband and I both love. We both grew up I grew up in Iowa, he grew up in Pennsylvania, so we grew up with fall colors, and then we moved to Texas. And there's just not that much fall color here. So for us, when fall comes around, we deck out our house with all the colors that we wish we could see outside of our windows. And for me, really, fall really portrays, well, my favorites are fall and spring because it portrays this journey of moving from one thing to another. It's like a growth almost, right? So the fading of the colors, the trees from one color to the next, it just makes my heart pitter patter. And if you know anything about Crafty Moose quilts, I really love to quilt in gradient colors. So this block, instead of just making it all one color or keeping it simple, I really wanted it to show the gradient of the life of a leaf. And I cannot wait to see what colors you guys put together so that you can really just see that gradient changing from one thing to the next. There are a couple of things that I wanted to talk about with this block in terms of construction. I know that we have a huge mix of quilters and it's been incredible to see all of you using your skills, learning new skills, challenging the way that you used to do something to learn something new. It's really been awesome to watch. In this block, we are going to use 2 at a time half square triangles. We're going to use that method, but we're also going to use 1 at a time half square triangles. Then, to make things even more complicated, we're going to take a rectangle and we're going to add what seems like a half square triangle to it, but not quite. So I wanted to kind of walk you through those different things and give you a couple different tips in case this is your first time making half square triangles. I also want to show you the tool that I use over and over again. In fact, it's a little beat up. I use a block lock ruler to trim all of my HSTs. It's a tool you're gonna want. I promise it's something that you're going to want. So here we go. Let's go make some blocks. With this block lock ruler, I wanted to show you really quickly. It has this incredible notch down the back side. That's what makes it really unique compared to other square rulers. And this little notch actually hugs onto your half square triangle. I really like the 6.5 inch ruler because you can do HSTs anywhere from 1 inch all the way up to 6.5. Here are some of the tools that you can be using to mark your fabrics. I really like this friction, I think that's how you pronounce it, pen. It disappears with the heat of the iron. I also really like a chalk pencil, but you have to be careful with the tip of the chalk pencil because it can leave a really thick line. This is called a Hera marker. Not a marker in the sense of like a Sharpie, but a marker in the sense that it's going to crease your fabric and leave a mark in the crease. For this video, I'm going to use the friction blue pen so that you can see what I'm doing on the fabric. We're going to begin with 1 square, and I'm just going to make a line from corner to corner. You want to be careful when you're marking your fabric. When you get close to the corners, sometimes the pen or whatever tool you're using can actually lift the corner of the fabric. So you'll see I just make really tiny marks right when I get to the corners of the fabric. I'm going to go ahead and mark this one as well from corner to corner using this blue friction pen. Again, the line disappears with the heat of the iron. Now I'm going to match these up with the coordinating fabrics that go with it. And on this one, this larger square is what we're going to use for the 2 at a time half square triangles. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually going to make a 1/4 inch line to the left of the center and to the right of the center. So you'll see that here I'm doing the other side. So when I'm done with this, I'm going to have 3 lines. I'll have the middle corner to corner and a line on each side that is a 1/4 inch away. This is for the 2 at a time half square triangles. Okay, I went ahead and sewed onto the fabric. You can see that I sewed just inside those outer lines. That is called a scant 1/4 inch, when you're just inside the lines. Now I'm going to cut this in half on that very first line that we drew. That is the center line from corner to corner, and that is where I'm going to cut. And I need to change my blade. Sorry about that, y'all. All right, when I go press these, I want to just leave the light side face down and the dark side face up and do a slight finger press. You want to be very careful because we're on the bias and the fabric gets very stretchy on the bias. So when you finger press and when you iron, you don't want to iron rigorously, like you just pulled a shirt out of the bottom of your child's closet and you're trying to iron out the wrinkles. You want to finger press very gently and iron very gently. Now we are ready to make our final cuts with the block lock ruler. I'm going to use a rotating mat here to show you guys the method that I like to use. The block lock ruler is going to slide perfectly against that folded seam if you've pressed to one side like I have. So you just want to make sure the logo of the ruler is on the lighter color side of the half square triangle. Now I'm going to line up the bottom 2 corners or the bottom 2 sides with the numbers on the ruler. So if we're cutting a 3.5 inch block, I'm going to use the 3.5 inch line on one side and the 3.5 inch line on the other side. Let me zoom in here a little bit so you can see a little bit better. And it's okay if the fabric is just a little bit outside of that line. You'll see inside the ring light, my fabric didn't quite meet that line, so I want to smooch up my ruler just a little bit. And it's okay if there's excess on the outside. We want to make sure that we're going to be inside the 3.5 inch line on both sides. So now that I know that I'm good on the inside of the ruler, I'm going to trim along the outside of the ruler. And please note that this block, I used some scrap fabric, so it's much larger than what you guys will be using in the pattern, but we are all cutting down to 3.5 inches. So I put the ruler back on, I turned everything upside down, and all I did was slide the ruler down. That's all I did. I turned everything around and slid it down. I'm going to line up on the 3.5 inch line again. That's the side we just cut. And now I'm going to cut the other side. I'm going to make sure I get that little dog ear off and trim up everything perfectly square. Okay, now we have our 1 at a time HST, and you'll see that I just stitched right on that center diagonal line. And this one is really simple. All we're going to do is we are going to place our ruler. You want the 1/4 inch line of your ruler right on top of that line that you sewed. And I'll try to get in closer here so you can see. It's so hard to see with the ring light. I apologize for that. But the 1/4 inch mark on my ruler is right on top of the line that I just sewed. So I'm going to trim away the excess, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to make sure that the light color fabric is on the bottom, the dark is on top. I'm going to do a very light finger press to make sure that I don't get a super wonky block and, pull the fabric too much on that bias. It does get super stretchy. And then I'm just going to give it a simple press. Now that we have a pressed block, we are going to use the block lock ruler again. The logo is on the lighter colored side. And I'm going to line up the 3.5 and 3.5 on the inside of the ruler, trim on the outside of the ruler. Then I'm going to give everything a quick spin. I'm going to slide the ruler to the other side, line up the markings on the inside of the ruler, and trim on the outside of the ruler. Super simple, and it gives you the perfect block. Look at that, just tiny little excess fabric. Perfect block every time. The last thing I want to show you guys is regarding these rectangles. There's 2 rectangles in the quilt, and it looks like we're sewing on a triangle to each rectangle, but we're not. We're using the same HST method where we're marking a diagonal across it and sewing on the diagonal, but please be careful. These are 2 opposite diagonals. If I turn that red rectangle upright to try to match the brown one, you'll see they're not the same angle. Now, please forgive my dirty quilt because it's already been on a photo shoot. Oh my goodness, I can't wait to see your blocks. All right, That's it. That's it for the Warm Woodlands block. If you follow the seam directions, the pressing directions, your block should nest together beautifully. All the little pieces should nest together and you should have a nice flat block in the end. If you skipped any of the blocks thus far because you felt like they were too hard, I want to personally challenge you to go back and do them. Try to sew the curves, try to use the improv in Dana's block, and the blocks after me with Heather's Bonfire Embers block. She also has some curves. I want to just be super vulnerable right now and tell you that I learned a lot making these blocks, and I was scared to make some of the blocks. But if I can do it, you can do it. It has been our hope through this entire sampler that you would be willing to put yourself out there and try new things. So please give it a shot. Post it on social media so that we can see what you're doing. Even if it didn't turn out the way you thought it would, it's okay. Show us that you're making an attempt. That's what's gonna fill our buckets and see, people are actually taking what we're putting together and trying to learn new things. We are so proud of you for making it this far, and we cannot wait to see all of your blocks sewn together.